Right, well, good afternoon, everybody. It is now 2 p.m., so we will start. So if I can welcome you to our first ever virtual Cabinet meeting of South Kesteven District Council. We'll just go through a few minor housekeeping notes just to start. Firstly, just to say that this meeting is being recorded. If I can ask that members turn on their cameras and just make sure that any phones that you may have or devices are switched onto the silent mode to reduce any possible distractions. If I could also ask members to refrain from writing comments in the chat function. This is for the use of Cabinet members to indicate that they would like to speak. When invited to speak, you should turn on your microphone and please do your best to remember to mute your microphone once you have finished speaking, just to enhance the quality of this meeting and sound. If you are intending to leave the meeting, if you could just let Cabinet members just notify us just so we are aware. And if we go into an exempt session, members of the press and public will be removed from this part of the meeting. Following their removal, members of the press and public should be presented then with an option to rejoin the meeting. As soon as we then come out of the closed session, we will then readmit you back into the meeting for the decision to be taken. And finally, just to note that following the last meeting of Cabinet on the 17th of March, I revised my scheme of delegations, reserving authority to make key decisions to myself in the role of leader and withdrawing that authority from the Cabinet sitting as a committee. And just to update you all that yesterday I revised my scheme of delegations again and have re-granted that authority back to the individual Cabinet members and when sitting together as a collective body to make those key decisions. So we'll then move on to the register of attendance and apologies for absence, please.
Right, register of attendance. Councillor Kellum Cook.
Here.
Councillor Barry Dobson.
If you can hear me, here.
Councillor Annie Mason.
Present.
Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Robert Reid.
Present.
Councillor Adam Stokes.
Present.
Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew. Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew. Can you unmute your mic? Thank you.
Might have helped if I'd done that first time. Sorry, present.
Thank you. That's all members of the Cabinet present.
Wonderful, thank you very much. So we'll move on to minutes of the previous meeting. This meeting was held on the 17th of March. Do we have any comments or amendments that we'd like to take? Any Cabinet members wish to speak? No? Then I'm happy to propose. Do we have a seconder? Barry, thank you. And then we shall move to the vote.
Agreed.
Agreed?
Yes, agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll take those as agreed. Disclosure of interests. So if anybody does have any interests at any point throughout this meeting, then please do raise those as a matter of normality. So then we'll move on to items for recommendation to Council. And we have a report on the Future High Street Fund. And this is a report from the Deputy Leader, Councillor Barry Dobson. So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Leader, and welcome everybody to this afternoon's Cabinet meeting. This is about the Future High Street and it concerns Grantham. As you know, the report before you is quite detailed, that we have been classed by Lincolnshire County Council as being the hub for Lincolnshire because of our infrastructure, and we want to make that Grantham, it becomes that hub, and we need to take command of it. So what we have done, we have prepared in association with a consultancy company and others, we have prepared a plan to put before or to submit to get approximately a £10 million grant to assist us in revamping our town. The High Street Fund starts, or our application starts from Station Approach and works its way down towards the town centre and then on up into Westgate It will include the various buildings along the way, such as the George Centre and Westgate Hall. So what we're trying to do is to encourage, the High Street is going to change. And we know that it's not going to be the same as it was when we were all younger. It's going to move on, and it's going to be more, we think, very much a social atmosphere there. We want to encourage it to make it look good, to join up with the Culture Centre, which is, around the SKDC offices, and to St Wolfram's Church, and make this all a very attractive place to be, to live, work, and to play. And especially to work, because we notice that we want to capitalise on the fact that many of the larger companies, including the banks, will leave London and move northwards. And as we are so well situated, we have the best infrastructure. Also, when you come by train, you get out of the train. We want you to be in a commercial environment, so that offices can be there. We want to have drop-in centres, and probably supported by ourselves from the council with offices. But it's important that when people come here, they get to see the atmosphere of the town, and to encourage the visitor economy as well. So that pack is in front of you. You can see on the various appendices, and if you start with page 15, we can see the map here of the Westgate, and if you had a chance, which I hope you have, to look at all these things around here, developing all these places around. County Council are working with us on the advancement of the A52, so that we can keep larger vehicles out of the town centre. It's an interesting package, and I'm sure that you'll need some more time to go through it than is available in this meeting, but I will happily take any questions. And I've got Liz Bates with me, who is the project officer on this, and they've done an excellent job on it. So I recommend that we adopt this, and very much indeed, so we can move it on. Thank you.
No, thank you, Barry. And I think if I can also add my thanks to both you and all of your officers as well for drawing this up. And I know obviously Rosemary's helped out with this on the project board, and Annie Mason as well. I think it really is a fantastic document that you brought for us to take forward to the council meeting. And I think it really does create that Grantham as that sort of that destination by sort of highlighting and segmenting the quarters, whether that be for the cultural heritage and then the leisure offer. I think it is an ambitious plan. I think it's well researched. I think there's been some really good engagement, and it's got quality running through it. And I think it's even more important at the moment, because for most of us, as we're all aware, our shops and retailers reopened again yesterday. Whatever we can do to support them in making it a success, in getting back to normal and supporting them, I think this will just add to that. So I think it's a really positive document, and I'm pleased that it's come so quickly, especially with the high streets reopening just yesterday.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
I think we've got a couple of comments as well. So we've got Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Callum, and thank you, Barry, for bringing this to us. I'm always keen to see how we're going to get our high streets back on track, and it certainly seems that a lot of work's been put in. But I've got a couple of questions, because I'm not quite following a couple of things in the main report, Barry. The report recommendations recommends the council approves its financial contribution to the delivery of the future high street scheme as outlined in the report, and we say at 1.4 that the original draft business case was a £27 million project with a future high street fund of 12.2 million and an SKDC contribution of 379,000 roughly, and later on we say the final business case is due for submission. So presumably the final business case is not the original business case, the original bid. And then in 1.8 we say that we're going to restrict it to 10 million threshold because we're more likely to get more likely to be favourable in that respect. But the financial comments in the report refer to the original bid. So I'm a bit confused about, are we saying that no matter what happens, our costs will be 379,000, or are we saying that actually we don't know what our costs are and they could be significantly different? Perhaps you could clarify for me.
Well, I think that's right. But what I will do is ask Liz, because it was started before I took over the portfolio. At the moment, I can tell you that we are going for a maximum of 10 million, and that maximum is being advised by people to us. We've been advised by others to go for under 10 million, because under 10 million we are more likely to get that grant than if we are to go above 10 million. If we go above 10 million, we are going to be fighting against the larger cities and towns that will have much more clout than we do. So we would like to get this money, and it seems like the best case was to get it if we went for under 10. That leaves, according to me here, it leaves us a surplus to find. But Liz, have we? Can you help me out here and tell me what what that was before and what it is now?
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of the changes that will happen between the draft bid that was submitted in March and the final bid, the projects that we will be able to take forward will change, because we're aiming for the ask from the Future High Street Fund to be under that 10 million. The match funding that's having to be contributed from South Kesteven District Council is for the revenue costs relating to the bid, and those are very unlikely to change, because those are pretty static no matter what you're doing in terms of the individual project interventions. So the total cost of the project will change according to what projects are taken forward. The expected contribution from the Future High Street will be just under 10 million, and we expect a review of those revenue costs, but we don't expect them to change substantially. Those will be reported at full council in July.
Yeah, that's fine. That clarifies that. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't being asked to recommend something which could escalate out of control, especially considering the current financial situation. And it wasn't clear in that. But thank you for the answer. Thank you.
No, I think that's absolutely right with financial prudence at the moment, which is obviously our cabinet member for finance, Adam.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'm always looking for prudence in documents and finances. No, I've seen lots of documents over the years relating to Grantham and how we can improve Grantham, and I'd say that this is probably one of the better ones that I've seen. So I'm in full support of this, and really hope that we are as successful in getting the money from government, because improving the town centre is a top aim of this administration and of myself as a Grantham councillor. So I'm in full support of it.
Thanks, Adam.
Brilliant. Thank you, Adam. Barry, was there anything else you wanted to finish?
Well, no, just to say that it is an exciting project. We've worked on this very hard, and thank you also, Callum, for involving my two fellow councillors, Rosemary Trollope-Bellew and Annie Mason, who have put in also, since they joined the group, a tremendous amount to this. And I thought they brought the feminine approach to a town centre and how we develop it. And I'm very pleased with the latest plans that we've got now coming through. It looks as though it's going to be absolutely fantastic. It is going to be the centre, as I mentioned. It's going to be a hub in Lincolnshire, and we really want to make this the flagship town to come to.
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely been a key effort, a really team effort from all of you. So thank you very much. So moving on to the recommendations of agenda item number 4 on page 11 of the Cabinet Pack. So we have recommendations 1, 2 and 3. So I propose we take those all together. Lucy, are we doing this as a formal vote, or are we just saying agreed?
You can do it whichever way you want to do it. Sorry. If
Leader, can I just say that we should be taking it as a formal vote, so if we can do through name calling, please.
Thank you, Chief Executive. I'm more than happy with that approach.
Councillor Kellam Cook.
4.
Councillor Barry Dobson.
4.
Councillor Annie Mason.
4.
Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley,
4.
Councillor Robert Reid,
4.
Councillor Adam Stokes,
4.
Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew.
4.
Brilliant.
That-
Lovely. Thank you. That is unanimous. So we shall move on to agenda item number 5, which is the programme of meetings of council and committees for 2020-2021. I would firstly like to say thank you to the officers that were involved in producing this, as I know it has taken an immense amount of work in order to get our full scheme of meetings back up and running again. So I'll hand over to the Chief Executive for this item, please.
Thank you, Leader. You can hear me. So the members, you will have received an addendum to the original report in the council papers. The programme of meetings as scheduled, and thanks also go to members' input as well, Leader, as well. So we've had a lot of support from members supporting us in the development of the schedule. The calendar has been prepared by taking into account partner organisations' timelines as well. So we do not want to be in a position next year where we have to reschedule some of our meetings because other partner organisations have not set their precepts. So that has been all taken into consideration. And a number of other matters around conferences, so we make sure that all members are able to attend. As you'll see, that the original had a whole list in the appendices of changes made to the draft meetings in Appendix 2, and then in the addendum you will also see that in 1.2 there was a whole range of additional amendments that we needed to make through further feedback and further time to review. So therefore, Leader, I recommend this to Cabinet to go forward. Just to reiterate, though, the process that we're proposing in this report, it is by constitution that the calendar should be approved by annual council. As annual council isn't until the 17th of September, it's a proposal that is a recommendation from Cabinet today to council on the 16th of July.
Super. Thank you very much for that. Obviously, it has had extensive consultation on this. And if I can, just on behalf of the Cabinet, also congratulate you, Chief Executive, on completing your first 100 days with us. I know you were only with us 14 days before we went into a pandemic, and you've certainly launched into a baptism of fire. But it's I'd like to thank you for what you've been doing so far, and I know it's been working extremely well. So on behalf of the Cabinet, thank you.
Thank you.
So Lucy, if we could move to the vote then, please, on this.
Councillor Callum Cook,
4.
Councillor Barry Dobson,
4.
Councillor Annie Mason,
4.
Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley,
4.
Councillor Robert Reid,
4.
Councillor Adam Stokes,
4.
Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew.
4.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Which then brings us on to our next agenda item, which is under the items for Cabinet decision, which is key, which is the COVID-19 financial impact report. And I'll hand over to Adam for this, please.
Thank you, Leader. This report is the first report to the Cabinet setting out the financial implications resulting from the COVID-19 crisis. A finance impact report was presented to FedEx Overview Scrutiny Committee. It's a long committee name, so I'm not going to go through it all. On the 26th of May 2020, and there was a good debate to help members gain an understanding of the issues and challenges facing the Council. A further update will be reported to the OSC on the 30th of June, providing the latest information. The report before you today provides information on the key budget income areas currently being impacted and the forecasting that is in place, the cash flow modelling and the proactive measures in place to protect the Council, the collection rates for both council tax business rates that are positively performing, the Lincolnshire pool and work in place to model the financial impact of any reductions in the business rate base. The report also confirms that the South Kesteven district profile of its businesses is at a lower risk than some of its neighbours due to the diverse nature of the business base. There's confirmation of the costs being incurred that have been necessary in order to positively respond to the crisis. Members may wish to note that the outstanding issue matter relating to the leisure provider and details are at Appendix D, but they are exempt items. Confirmation of the grant received to date by government and the positive increase in the amount received in the second round following continuing lobbying by districts in the sector, because obviously in the first round we got 64,000, but in the second round we got 1.4 million of a grant. Confirmation of the government schemes the finance team have been responding to, including paying out 27 million in business grants. I'm sure that has now gone up since this note. Awarding over 17 million of the extended rate retail relief, and awarding grants to over 2,800 working age claimants and reducing their council tax bills by up to £150. And I can confirm that since this report was compiled, a further 58 arts centre staff has been furloughed, and this will save an average of 29,000 for each month they are furloughed. The report is supported by a number of appendixes that provides the further information on the above areas that I've mentioned, and a financial risk register is also appended, and the register ensures that the risks are captured and managed with the appropriate mitigations that are in place. The income, cash flow and risk register are shared with other senior finance colleagues across Lincolnshire to ensure a consistent approach and also to share best practice. Whilst at the present time the total financial exposure is unknown, the modelling prediction of up to 3.8 million income losses should be offset by reductions in expenditure, such as the furloughing of staff, reduction in premises costs with the closure of such public buildings, the use of government funding, and where necessary the use of the budget stabilisation reserve that we instigated in the March budget meeting. Cabinet will be presented with a further report at the July meeting, setting out the steps in order to prepare and recommend to Council an amended 2021 budget framework meeting on the 17th of September. So what I'm asking Cabinet this afternoon is to review the current position for the 2021 and comment on the actions being taken as detailed in the report. Number two, to agree and continue to monitor the current 2021 financial position and recommend amendments to the budget framework at their meeting on the 8th of September for consideration by the Council on the 17th of September. Number three, to suspend car parking charges until the 1st of August 2020 at all council operated pay and display car parks. Number four, to continue the remuneration bonus of £50 to drivers, operative, team leaders, supervisors, vehicle fitters and support staff working within the street scene service, together with any staff seconded to the service during the COVID-19 for the period up to and including the 30th of September 2020. The bonus payment received by part-time and casual staff will be on a pro rata basis. And number five, to reintroduce the billing of rent to the SME small medium enterprises that occupy council premises from the 1st of July 2020, and delegate authority to the interim Director of Finance in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources to suspend rents for individual tenant businesses that meet the criteria in relation to hardship. So that's my presentation. Mr. Leader, if there's any questions, myself and Richard are on the call. Thank you.
Brilliant, super. Thank you very much for that, Adam. And I think if I can also pay my thanks to you and your team in finance, because I think we've had an immensely challenging period for the last weeks and months. And I think the really positive thing coming out of this report as well, similar to what we were just discussing on the Future High Streets Fund, is obviously the decision to continue suspending the car parking charges in our market towns, supporting people to get back onto the high street, of course in a socially distanced and safe way, but really just supporting those retailers. And I think, obviously, I know Peter will probably touch on this as well, but the remuneration for our street scene workers, and the bonus payments that we've been paying every week to them, they have been keeping those bins running, that 80,000 collection rate, in comparison to some other areas where they've had to suspend collections, we've continued a full waste service, so they rightly deserve that reward for the work that they've done. And I think it's an ever-moving feast at the moment, actually, in relation to local government finance. Tomorrow morning, I've got a meeting again with all of the Lincolnshire leaders and the chief executives talking about finance and talking about future funding. So it's vitally important that we have our own house in order. But I'll ask Peter Mosley to come in, please.
Yeah, thank you, Callum. Yeah, you touched on it, and firstly, thank you, Adam, for bringing this to us, and thank you and your team for keeping on top of the finances throughout this particularly difficult time. I have to say, yes, I'm absolutely in full support of this. The waste team obviously have provided us with a degree of stability across our critical service, and it's something that I think the residents of South Kesteven have very much welcomed and been appreciative of, in that they have still got to see their council working for them every single week and delivering that valuable service, and also being those eyes on the ground for us as a council to see, you know, are people not doing so well? Are there issues on the ground? So I very much welcome the continuation of the bonus fee for them. I'd also like to highlight that obviously our grounds maintenance service staff that volunteered, I mean, we brought grounds maintenance in-house to specifically give us flexibility when there were things like this. I mean, obviously we were talking, I think, about snow and ice the last time, and this is a world away from that. But I'm delighted that actually we've been able to put into action the desire to have that flexibility within our organisation, and that it has helped us to ease out the staffing burdens and the challenges on the streets. Yes, again, car parks, very happy with that decision, although, you know, at some point we will have to think about reinstating charging, and I don't think there's ever going to be a good time for that, but I hope that there are seeds of recovery, that we're starting to see people getting back to some degree of normality, and I very much welcome that accelerating in the future. And I think it's probably worth pointing out that thank you to all of our residents at this point for doing what they've been told, for being careful, because I'm sure we wouldn't be in this position coming out of this and starting to get back to normality if they hadn't done what they were asked. So I pay big thanks to them, but fully appreciative and fully supportive of this, Adam.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'll invite Rosemary to come in first.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Adam, of course. Obviously, I think we're all looking at the finance very carefully. I think it's been a very useful exercise in regards to the opening, keeping the open our markets. I have received some information from the National Market Traders Federation, who said that 50% of the markets nationally did not operate at all during lockdown. So I think praise must go to Paul Stokes and his team for keeping things going, for coping well with the social distancing and the one-way systems that they had to put in place, and also the traders for coming and supporting us. And I think that shows now that as we open things up, our markets, where some were in decline, are now actually starting to improve, and people, I think, are appreciating how useful our markets have been. I think as regards to operating during the lockdown, it's enabled us to cope better with the opening of the high streets. So all in all, I think thank you, Paul and team, and thank you especially to the officers on the ground that have gone out there and put the stalls up, and also the traders that came and supported us at Grantham, Bourne and Stamford markets. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rosemary. And obviously, Mark Whittington, as Vice Chairman of the FEDCO Committee, I know you said you'd like to provide some feedback. So would you like to do that for us, please?
Hold on a second, just get the video going. Hello, yes, thank you very much, Leader. I think first thing is very important to say is that before the first FEDCO meeting that went through these paper documents, we did actually have a meeting with Adam and Richard Wiles to go through the sorts of things that we'd be interested in looking at. So these documents were also drawn up very much with the FedEx as well. We gave at our original first meeting, we went through them in very great detail, look at some of the assumptions behind the potential loss of income. I think the document was knocked around a fair bit, and I think a lot of questions were answered to the committee's satisfaction. I'm delighted to see that the financial risk register is in place because that was one of the requests that we had. I know they've all come out as high. That's to be expected. But the great thing about a risk register is once you've got everything down on black and white, it does become very, very easy to focus in on it, which is why which is why we were very keen to actually see that. Obviously, we'll be reviewing these documents more formally at our meeting on the 30th of June. We also know that at some point there's going to be an emergency budget, some budget amendments later in the year, and again we'll be going through those. But just to support the comments that Adam Stokes was making in terms of some of the mitigation that's there, this is really a worst case scenario. It's good that we actually highlight that, but as Adam has said, there are a lot of mitigating factors that will reduce that figure of 3.8 down quite considerably. But I guess, and I'm sure Adam or Richard might support this, we won't really know what that's going to be until they've gone through the updated budget. And that's it. Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you.
Not at all. Thank you, Mark, for that. And if I can bring in Annie Mason, please.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to say thank you, Adam, for a comprehensive update there. And I'm thoroughly supportive of suspending the car parking charges, as it's crucial. We need to support our high streets as much as possible.
Brilliant. Thank you, Annie. I've got a Richard on the screen. I presume this is Richard Wiles.
It is, Mr. Leader, yes.
If you'd like to speak.
Thank you. It's just really to expand on the points that other members have made, which is around the fact that this is a very much a moving field, and this will progress and mature as we go forward. It's fair to say that this is a relatively pessimistic worst case scenario, purely and simply because the outlook partly at the time of writing the report, but partly as part of the phasing and gradual unlocking, there are still some uncertainties ahead. But as we develop towards the amendments coming forward before council, it'll be some of the scenarios in this report will be offset by other savings and other reductions in expenditure, either deliberate reductions or incidental and consequential reductions as well. So there'll be a more rounded version of the full impact for the authority, both in the short and medium term. So at the moment, this is slightly one-dimensional because it's focusing very much on the income losses, which are more tangible, but clearly there are other factors that will be working towards mitigations as Councillor Whittington has described. So as we go through this next summer period, that work will pick up speed as we head towards the amendments coming before Council. Thank you.
No, brilliant. Well, thank you, Richard and Adam, for that. So if we can now turn back to page 123 of the Cabinet report, I'll propose that we take all the votes en bloc. So we'll take 1 to 5 all together. Adam, did you have anything else you wanted to say in summing up before we go to the vote?
No, Leader. I think Richard has summed it up quite well. Thank you.
Brilliant. Super. Thank you very much. Lucy, if we can go to the vote, please.
Councillor Kellen Cook.
4.
Councillor Barry Dobson. Councillor Barry Dobson.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Annie Mason.
4.
Councillor Dr. Peter Mosley.
4.
Councillor Robert Reid.
4.
Councillor Adam Stokes.
4.
Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew.
4.
Thank you.
Brilliant. That is unanimous. So what we'll do is we'll move on to our next agenda item or section, which is items for the Cabinet decision, which is non-key. So agenda item number 7, COVID-19 SKDC response position statement. We'll be pleased to know that I haven't got a 20-minute speech prepared. I'm just going to say a few words, and then some of the Cabinet will also feed into this discussion as well. So firstly, I think I've made no secret of the fact that I am extremely proud of our response to COVID-19 as a council and as a community. In times of crisis, residents and businesses look to their local authorities for clear and effective and visible leadership. And leadership doesn't just come from the top. It can only ever truly come from that strong, dedicated and loyal team, for which I thank all of my Cabinet colleagues. There is no place in a crisis for party politics or egos, and we've all worked together as a team, as well as our senior officers. And the support we've all had from the very beginning has been outstanding, and it means a lot, not just to me, and I'm sure to all the Cabinet members and officers that have been dealing with this crisis. Support from both the staff, the communities, and importantly, support from members across the council, both from the administration group and opposition members, all working together. So before I briefly talk you through this report, I want to put firmly on record my thanks and gratitude to everyone. You've all been quite simply brilliant. So over the last 12 weeks, we have seen significant changes in the way we deliver our services and support our communities. So we are bringing this report forward for 3 reasons, really, and that's to put on record the response of the council and partners and the current position of SKDC with regards to the COVID-19 response, to formally recognise and truly exceptional response from community groups, charities, volunteers and our parish and town councils, and to identify and learn lessons from what we have done as we move forward into the restart and recovery phase. And right at the start of this pandemic, we were very clear as a council, and we set out 3 priorities, which were to protect the health of our staff, members and residents, to maintain our critical services and to support our local businesses. So we are delivering all 3 of those, and I think our achievements in meeting and exceeding our key priorities are earning us recognition, most importantly, I think on a local basis, really. And as we continue to move through this crisis. So just a few highlights that we've achieved as a team. If you think back to the beginning of this crisis, we've now got more than 400 staff working from home. We've got members tuning into meetings virtually, protecting all of our own health and that of our residents. We refocused and redeployed staff to put in place new services that I know Annie will want to discuss as part of the community hub, and that befriending, offering that really vital support for so many of our residents. Peter and his team, leading the waste collection service, picking up those 80,000 bins a week, dealing with, just critical services as a council, and Robert dealing with those urgent housing needs and those emergency housing repairs, and Barry and his team through Invest SK, we distributed over £27 million to, just over 2,200 businesses, as well as 900 businesses receiving rates relief. So it's a really fantastic team effort there. And that is a small snapshot as what we are doing. But I think just to recognise, what we have done in the last few weeks and months. And I think also, so many members have also stepped forward to help wherever that was needed, whether that be using the increased member ward grants that we've got, as well as supporting the communities at that really grassroots level. And also supporting that befriending service, making those regular calls. And I think, we've been really clear as a council about, communicating about, how we're dealing with the crisis. We did a special version of SK Today, just highlighting what was on offer and how they could get, and how people, our residents could get assistance. We continually interact on social media. It's increased by 155% since the start of the lockdown. And both the Chief Exec and I have taken the lead on communicating with our staff, so ensuring that they get a daily email from us about what's happening, helping out with mental health issues, and just making sure that they feel supported, as well as members twice weekly getting an email about what's happening and how they can get involved and what's going on. Our customer services team continue to support our residents remotely, and I think I can say, with thanks to our IT team today, I know they've burnt the midnight oil on more than one occasion to help us keep running in this virtual new world, which enabled us to have this meeting today. And I hope when we come out of this pandemic, we can continue to have virtual meetings. So we have that real mix of whether some people in a full council meeting were in the chamber and some people are at home, that we can use the technology. And I think throughout this, we've continued to work closely with our partners, both at the Lincolnshire Resilience Forum, across councils, across Lincolnshire and across the region. I know I do, weekly calls as well with the District Councils Network, speaking to over 200 leaders of district councils dealing with the issues that we're currently that are affecting us. I know obviously Annie will pick up about the amazing work the volunteers and voluntary groups are doing across our district, supporting our residents. So I'd like to conclude by saying that, despite what we've done so far, it would be foolish and remiss of me to say that, we can always learn lessons on what we have done. And, you know, let's hope we don't have another pandemic for another 100 years. And we are not out of the woods yet either. You know, we've still got a lot of work to do in supporting our businesses and supporting the high streets and getting back to normal, and supporting our residents, because there are going to be challenging times ahead. So I just want to reassure everybody that we are going to learn from the lessons that we've had. And that is why, you know, there are some of the key lessons highlighted in this report, which I know obviously my fellow cabinet members will want to discuss. And obviously I would like to make the recommendation to note that obviously, you know, the response of us and our partners to the COVID crisis, the current position of the council with regards to the response, recovery and delivery of those priorities are in this document. The exceptional role of the voluntary and community sector and residents groups in achieving the delivery of the priorities during this period, and also the initial lessons we've learned from this report, and the intention to carry out a full review of the purpose as part of the COVID-19 recovery plan, which will be scrutinised by both us as cabinet and full council as well, so all members can be involved with that. And I think it's really important that we work together as we come out of this crisis. And I'd like to just once again add my thanks to everybody for being involved. So I will now open up to comments from cabinet members, please. Who'd like to go first?
I don't mind going first.
Brilliant. Yeah, more than happy, Annie.
Yeah, I mean, really, to just confirm what you've said, Callum, it's been a challenge for everybody, a challenge for the staff, for the officers, for members, for cabinet. It's been a challenge throughout, and everybody has just been amazing and fantastic. Yourself and Karen, who's led the change and the support is just been phenomenal, really. So thanks to you and Karen, as well as absolutely everybody else. You mentioned the voluntary sector. We've just seen throughout the media how the voluntary sector's come together, how amazing it's been. And I don't really want to highlight a couple of them because, to be frank, all of them have been absolutely amazing, and we've all just worked together so fantastically. The befriending has been such a huge success, so obviously we're looking at how we can look at ways to take this forward. And the SK Community Hub has just been vital for our communities. So across the board, I think the response that's come from the council, the staff, the residents, the members and the voluntary sector has just been phenomenal. Thank you.
No, lovely. Thank you, Annie. Peter, I'll bring you in next.
Thank you, Callum. Yes, I'm going to reiterate obviously everything that you said. You know, it is a testament to our staff, really, that we've managed to get through this relatively unscathed, I would suggest. Obviously, very, very proud of the operational staff who just seem to sort of slot in to do what they do and cracked on with it, and big testament to them. I wanted to actually just highlight a couple of things that sort of you wouldn't ordinarily associate with being useful, perhaps, with this. Is that just before the pandemic struck, we just managed to complete the installation of some smart street lighting, part of the Internet of Things, and we've talked a little bit in this meeting about technology and how it has a strong role to play in the future. But two of the sensors that we'd put in, one of them was an air quality sensor, and one of them was a footfall sensor, and they were done just as a trial, just to see how we could utilize technology, and the information that we've been able to get from them has been actually fundamental in terms of steering some of our thoughts within the team as to where we might go in the future. So I mean, there are these kind of little things, if you like, but also I wanted to bring out the approach that some of our staff had, in particular the commercial waste team. They deal with, very much like Invest SK deals with the businesses of our district. The way commercial waste team deal with businesses face to face and providing a service. And I'm really proud that the first thing that they did as soon as trouble hit was to contact all of our customers and work with them to make sure that they weren't disadvantaged throughout this. So if they needed to suspend their service, they really got that straight away. If they needed more, they got that straight away. If they needed a change to it, they got that straight away. And actually, that foresight has meant that now that we're coming out of the other side of this, we are reputationally, as an organisation, so much stronger. So this has been right from the very start, and I think it's just important to mention those couple of things. Other than that, I just couldn't be prouder of the team. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Peter. Barry, did you have anything you wanted to add on this one?
Yeah, thank you, Callum. Yes, I just would like to say that it has been an unprecedented time, we've all worked together, and I'd like to thank you and my fellow cabinet members for being able to work with me. I think we've all done not praising ourselves, but I think everyone that we have in our teams have done a fantastic job. And I think if there is a word that I could use now that we need to look for, is growth. We have to regrow everything that we've made over the years, and how important Grantham and South Kesteven has become to Lincolnshire and to the country. And I think going back now, as we approach, I don't think we'll go back to what it was. I think there's going to be a change, and I think we have to move with that change. And we're here to help. And using Invest SK as a driver, I think we will get there. I'm determined to get there. And I'd like to thank everyone who supported us and will support us in the future.
Thank you, Larry. Rosemary.
Thank you. I would just like to say that my cabinet role seemed to just fold apart from the markets, but the art centres in particular were all closed down about the 23rd of March, and I must say that the team have pulled together, and we have probably come kicking and screaming into the 21st century, and learnt a lot about what we can do to help people to appreciate poetry, jazz, sketching, all with the use of the modern technology to some of us. So I think in that respect, we have done an excellent job, or the officers have done an excellent job. And the first thing that we did was to get the organise the Stamford Perch Laureate at the end of April, and we had 7 people put their names forward for that, and we had one successful, Rob Elks, who is actually doing remarkably well since he's taken on the role, and he has achieved about 600 views on his Instagram and 150 K on Facebook, and that's just with 2 videos that he's put forward. So in that respect, I think the art centres and the cultural aspect of SK have done a marvellous job. I mean, now I think our hard work does begin. The visitor economy is going to play an important part in our district's recovery. So we are now looking to see how we can help businesses move on from that. And I'd just like to say thank you to you and to Karen for all that you've done, and the rest of my cabinet members and the other councillors, and especially to all the officers, because it was a definite unknown, and I think everybody's worked so well together. So thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. Robert, do you want to add anything?
Thank you, Leader. It's good to be back with you. We're having a thunderstorm in Bourne, so I've had to move. You can hear and see me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so with the planning hat on first, as we all know, when we went into these terrible special measures where government legislation was concerned, there was to be no change or break where planning was concerned. Planning, as members know from virtual meetings, we've managed to conduct 2, and we now have got them into a 2-weekly cycle, hearing 3 or 4, depending on the complexity of them, on a programme through to September, which will mean that we should manage to address the mid-20s of the 50 that are currently in the system at various stages. I'd particularly like to say thank you to committee members for the commitment to undertake 2 weekly meetings, and indeed I think all of us in planning have learnt a new way of communicating, appraising applications, and indeed presentations with presentation material, and there will be site visits needed for some of the applications, in the future as soon as legislation, which is now easing, is allowing. With the housing hat on, like everybody else within the team, it was necessary first of all to undertake to look after homelessness people, and homelessness was closely managed throughout the crisis. We used void properties that were bought back as quickly as possible to use as new temporary accommodation. Urgent repairs were prioritised and undertaken within 24 hours, and we managed to keep on top of that, albeit we have got a backlog of repairs which we are beginning to address, ways in which we can try and catch up. We've worked collaboratively with partners to provide critical support for tenants and those who were or were at risk of becoming homeless. And I think that's basically where we are on housing, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Adam, I know you spoke on the last agenda item. Was there anything you wanted to add on this one?
Yes, thank you, Leader. No, I think everyone has spoken quite well about how well we've done as a council and how well the staff have done. And I just want to fully support what's been said before, because it's been an unprecedented time, one that I hope we never ever see again. Well, certainly not in my lifetime, because it's just shut down the whole country, and to pick up the pieces will be quite difficult and be very hard, and it's going to be a long road ahead. Thank you, Leader.
No, thank you, Adam. And I think it's really important that we do reflect on, what we have done. I know we've had a number of positives, but actually, before we move on to the next agenda item, we can't forget those that have suffered from this virus and the loss of life that it has led in some of our communities and our towns, and the loss of life. And as some of you will know, we've had some staff members' family fall ill from this and also pass away from this. And I've, as leader of the council, I've personally handwritten to each of those staff members who have lost loved ones, just to send our condolences on behalf of the council. So before we move on to the next agenda item, I would like us just to have a minute's silence just in memory of those that have lost their lives in our district. And I'm sure you'll all join me in that now. Thank you. Lovely. Thank you for that, everyone. So on this agenda item, obviously the three recommendations are just simply for noting. So on that one, Chief Executive, I presume we won't be having a formal vote on this.
Thank you, Leader. That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, so if we move on to agenda item number 8, which is our COVID-19 SKDC recovery plan. So as I set out in the previous report, obviously I'm very proud of the way in which we, as a council, have dealt with the crisis. The report deals with what we have done and provides an important account of work to date, our successes and lessons learned to take us forward. I think we all acknowledge, and what we've just been saying is we've got a long way to go in our battle with COVID-19. So there can be no complacency and no place for that, or resting on our laurels. I think it's vitally important that we direct the same amount of energy and effort into enabling our district to not only recover but to thrive in the months and years ahead. And that is why throughout this pandemic, whilst we have consistently attempted and met our 3 key priorities, we've also continued to make progress on our other major projects, such as St Martin's Park, and obviously I know the Deputy Leader has been dealing with the leisure programme, obviously Councillor Reid on the housing programme and planning. And, we may have had to adapt our timescales and our approach on this, but our foot remains firmly on the pedal. This report before you sets out our transition from the initial, understandably reactive, responsive phase covered in the previous paper to our more strategic and planned approach to the development and delivery of a recovery plan. It sets out a framework for the more planned phases and the immediate next steps needed for delivery. The detailed recovery plan will be presented to the Cabinet formally in September, alongside our new corporate plan and an amended budget framework. However, today I would like to seek your approval for a framework for recovery and to ask you to note some of the activity that we are undertaking now and over the coming months to support our district in safely restarting as we begin our journey towards what will be the new normal. Our framework for recovery is based on the following stages. So response, so the immediate, primarily emergency and reactive actions needed in a rapidly evolving external environment as COVID-19 developed, and we learned from the science. And by this, I mean actions such as closing our public buildings, closing the offices, enabling our staff to work from home, the initial support for businesses in terms of the grant distribution allocated by government, and then obviously that rent and rates relief and support and advice on the government guidance. The restart stage, so the phased reopening of operations such as sports, arts facilities, and our town centres with those key 5 themes that we are currently working to. So those key 5 themes that you see in the restart phase, and we are going to weave those into our new corporate plan. So I think they're really important stages. The recover, so stimulating activities to support the wider businesses with sector-specific support where necessary and appropriate. And part of the refocus of Invest SK that we did at the beginning of the lockdown to focus on that business continuity and resilience and really providing that sector-specific support. Gosh, I really am tripping over some of these words today. Reshaping, so revising our long-term plans to incorporate wider changes in behaviours and then that role that we've got in the community leadership. So this could mean a greater digital service offered by the council, increased working from home for our staff, and actually embedding that carbon reduction into the new ways of working. And at the heart of this report is the need to reset and review what we know, our assumptions, and what we have learned during the remaining phases of our response. There is, of course, a high degree of uncertainty and volatility in the wider environment, which will impact on the role and shape of our council going forwards. And over the past couple of years, we have made great gains by adopting an ambitious but prudent approach to position SKDC as a forward-thinking council focused on what I've always described as dynamic stability and delivery. And this meant that when we went into the COVID-19, we were in a strong position, and our job now is to ensure that as a council, us as a council and our communities come out of this crisis in as strong a position as possible. The report also asks Cabinet to note some of the activity that we are undertaking now and over the coming months to support our district in safely restarting as we begin the recovery journey towards a new normal. You will see that in Appendixes 1 to 5. There is a list of key activities that the council plans to undertake in the immediate future to support our residents and businesses as we move forward and continuing to progress our priorities. So obviously they include reopening the town centres. I know some of our staff have been doing some amazing work over the last couple of days in doing that. Supporting business restarting, so providing that support to our businesses as they begin to reopen. Reshaping the community support, building more council homes, development of our leisure programme, and keeping the district clean as we have always done. Of course, we can't do any of this without mentioning about amending our financial position projections, as Adam Stokes has already mentioned. That the COVID crisis has had a significant impact on the finances of all local authorities, and of course income and expenditure is going to be significantly different to what our expectations were when we set the budget in March. So obviously I know my colleague Councillor Stokes will be presenting an amended budget in September. I think there's still a lot of uncertainty ahead. They are, and quite simply, extraordinary and unprecedented times. And I think, as we've all said, I think none of us want another pandemic for at least another 100 years. So the unpredictability that we are facing, and at every level really, from parish councils to global institutions, means that we need the ability to both plan and respond rapidly, and to do that with everything that we do. So our plans will need to be flexible to take account of the uncertainty, but by taking that lessons learned approach, continuing to work in partnership, both internally across the public sector, with the voluntary sector, with the business community, and with the councils across Lincolnshire, I hope we'll be able to instil that real vital stability and confidence that we will all come through this together and ultimately be stronger from that. Obviously, I'll open up to conversation from Cabinet members, but I hope you'll join me in supporting the recommendations in this report to both approve the framework for developing a recovery plan and to note the upcoming activities in the restart phase of the framework. Who would like to go first? Adam, was there anything you wanted to mention further on finance? I know we've had quite a session from you today.
Yes, Leader. Obviously, bringing the amended budget in September will be crucial to how we go forward, because obviously we don't really know what is going to be the final outcome of this pandemic. So, I mean, when we come back in September, that will be key to know what we can do as an administration going forward. We're still ambitious. We still want to do everything we've said. So it will just be a case of realigning things. But I do look forward to bringing the amended budget back.
Brilliant. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Callum. Yeah, just thanks for your report as well. I just wanted to focus on the environment and commercial and operational portfolio aspects of that, and specifically with regards to the carbon footprint. We had our first virtual task and finish group this morning, where the Carbon Trust joined us and presented our carbon footprint to us and explained it all through, and it was welcomed to. I think there were about 25 people on that particular call, and it was very welcome. It took into context the issues that we are going to face in terms of our carbon footprint post-COVID as well. There was a lot of focus on the fact that our environment has now changed, and the way that we work as a council may fundamentally be different moving forwards. And so that's a real challenge that I think everybody wants to get their teeth into in that respect. I will point out that they told us that our carbon footprint is 7,600 tonnes, but I don't think it was in April when we had buildings shut and leisure centres shut and the like. I'm delighted that they're going to be, hopefully we'll start to see them open, and I'm delighted we've got a really good, strong leisure programme coming forward that can take advantage of this particular piece of work as well. And finally, I just wanted to say that I'm delighted that we're going to see the Big Clean start to re-establish itself and get out there now that the staffing pressures are a little less. I think we're going to try and do what we can if we have time to, in fact, also do the Best Kept Village competition this year. I know that a lot of residents will have been sat at home for the last 3 months, and I'm aware that our rural villages will be looking fantastic right now because everybody will have been out in their gardens and looking after them. And I think it's if we can do something to to reward that, then it would be good. And then the final bit, of course, is in terms of getting things started, is we've been looking at the markings in Wellham Street car park for electric vehicle charging points for about 3 months now, waiting for them to be connected, because we were unfortunate enough to go into lockdown literally the day before they were due to be connected by Western Power. And I'm glad to hear that the team are working to get that on Western Power's schedule, so we should have a clean green alternative for vehicle charging and accepting people with electric vehicles into our towns very shortly.
Oh, that's fantastic news, because I know quite a few friends that have got electric cars keep sending me WhatsApp messages saying, when are you going to get these things switched on? Because they can see them physically, but obviously they're just not.
I'm as frustrated as them, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point on the Village of the Year competition, because I'm sure I don't need to speak for Rosemary as well, but obviously we both live in the village of Barham, and it is looking very smart at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's right. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that happens.
Okay. Do I have any other Cabinet members that wish to speak on this agenda item?
Yes, when you're ready, Callum.
Yes, Robert.
Okay, so housing points. We are pleased to be we are continuing to support our tenants and those in housing need through our tenancy services, our sheltered housing, supporting the homeless through temporary accommodation allocations will obviously be ongoing. We've restarted housing management, catching up on maintenance and repair services, and we will restart the development of council-owned housing sites, providing housing to meet the needs for our residents. And owing to the situation, I think the demands are only going to grow at the minute. As several members know, the Hewmore site is out for consultation with within housing before a presentation would be made as a planning application as the next phase. Housing, we are undertaking and checking our compliance, and we are looking to monitor our performance and delivery of housing, the housing service as a whole. Turning to planning, I've mentioned about the fortnightly virtual planning, so I shan't go over that again. It's good to note that we're continuing to process a local plan review, and so our planning policies are in the best possible place to enable growth in the district, and that's ongoing. And we will process the review of the council's growth function so that we're in the best possible processes for governance and resource, and in the right place to support our growth and ambitions, should we be able to carry them out. Fingers crossed and prayers that we will. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Annie.
Yes, thank you, Callum. The recovery report is an absolutely excellent starting point. We absolutely need to make sure that we review and reset at each point, as you've mentioned there, during each of the phases, to enable us to amend and refocus as necessary because of all the uncertainty going forwards. We've got a really long road ahead of us, but I think that, you know, we're all committed to working on our individual portfolios, myself with regards to the community sector and building on what we've achieved during the pandemic. And capitalise on the relationships really that we've built all the way through. So I think it is a good starting point. Thank you.
Brilliant. Is there any other cabinet members that wishes to speak? If not, then Karen, as Chief Executive, you mentioned that you'd like to say something on the.
My mic was turned off again.
Sorry, Barry. Please.
Yeah, I just like to summarise it all and be very quick. In that, you know, in my portfolio and all our portfolios, we want to deliver growth for our economy, to regrow it, to make sure it's strong. And we want to give strong communities with high quality facilities. And we want that also to provide us with a clean and sustainable environment. Basically a summary of everything said, except housing, which Robert has covered. But I think it's so important. And I think this document and what we said today can only point towards, for all of us here in South Kesteven, a very successful future. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Barry. And I think if I could bring the Chief Executive in, because obviously I know when you first started with us, Karen, I know we had a couple of objectives, and one of those was a corporate plan, and unfortunately the pandemic did get in the way of it. But actually, we've been working on it, I know, together as both a cabinet team, and obviously we're going out to consultation with members. But if you'd like to add to the debate, please.
Thank you, Leader. Just a few comments from me. I was pleased to see this report developing, because I really do believe it's a comprehensive restart plan. I want to thank all members of Cabinet as well for your input, which I know you've inputted through the directors team into the actions for restart and helping us frame that programme going forward. And I just think it gives us that focus for the next 3 months around the activities to support that restarting of the community, what we need to do in the next steps to continue to ensure we've got strong communities, to make sure that we are green and healthy and environmentally strong. We do have some challenges around some of our areas, as Councillor Reid has said, around housing and planning, but we do have plans in place to look to approach those key challenges going forward, shall we say. And as the corporate plan is developing, what are the pieces of work that we've been looking at is looking at the evidence for our district in where we are, saying, you know, pre-COVID, we're in COVID, you know, what's happened with that SWOT analysis. And as you will see from the 5 appendices as part of the report, what we've tried to do as a corporate management team alongside the Cabinet is try to frame that in a way of looking at how these 5 areas become the priorities of the council, which then gives us to make sure that we can be focused in the right areas. So I think it's a really exciting future. I look forward to the coming workshops with all council members, and then for a presentation of the corporate plan to Cabinet in September, and then if approved onto council in September.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Chief Executive. Is there any other Cabinet member that wishes to speak? No? Did you want to add anything, Rosemary? If you had anything else further?
No, thank you.
No. Okay, then we'll move to a vote on agenda item number 8. As it is, we are not just noting this, we are also approving it. So, Lucy, if you could read out the names, please.
Councillor Kellen Cook.
4.
Councillor Barry Dobson.
4.
Councillor Annie Mason.
4.
Councillor Dr Peter Mosley.
4.
Councillor Robert Reid.
4.
Councillor Adam Stokes.
4.
Councillor Rosemary Trollope-Bellew.
4.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That is unanimous. So if we move on to items for information, so matters referred to the Cabinet by the Council or Overview and Scrutiny Committees. I haven't been alerted to anything on that. Agenda item 10, representations and questions from non-Cabinet members. Before I bring in our first speaker, Councillor Ray Wotton, I'd just like to make a statement with regards to the Grantham Hospital. So, as I said at our full council meeting in January, there are many important issues affecting Grantham and our wider district. Few as vital as the need for 24/7 urgent care services in what is our largest town in South Kesteven. Grantham is growing, and as a council we are encouraging and supporting growth that develops our communities in a dynamic but sustainable way. It is, therefore, imperative that we have a health service provision that supports our existing and expanding communities and provides the high quality, accessible healthcare our residents rightly demand and deserve. The issue goes beyond the provision of an around-the-clock urgent treatment centre. We need to ensure that our growth is supported by the provision of an appropriate health infrastructure as an integral part of Grantham's expansion and regeneration. And while some of the proposals are to be welcomed, namely the provision of cancer care and treatment, and the provision of some elective surgery procedures on the Grantham Hospital site, and the sensible separation of facilities for the treatment of COVID-19 and non-COVID-19 related issues, we need to ensure that any proposals reflect future needs as well as current demands. And at present, I am not convinced that that is the case. I've already spoken personally with both Gareth and Caroline, our local MPs, and I can assure you that they will continue to lobby for a healthcare provision that meets existing and future needs. And I know that we will all ensure that our views are heard from grassroots to government. We have a voice, and I think we all need to use it. And which is why I'm also pleased that we will be holding a special council meeting to discuss and debate the changes to our local hospital, so we can send our thoughts formally to the ULHT board and the Chief Executive, Andrew Morgan. And I know that that request for that extraordinary council meeting was supported cross-party, just showing that this transcends party politics and we're all working for the benefit of our residents here in Grantham and the wider South Kesteven. So on that, I would like to invite Councillor Ray Wotton firstly, please.
Good afternoon, Chairman, and thank you very much, Steve, for allowing me to speak today. Before I start, may I place on record mine and Linda's thanks and appreciation to the NHS, not only here in Grantham, but nationwide, for the professional way they have served us all, risking their lives on a daily basis, treating the community. I must also add to those key workers from within SKDC and the emergency services who kept this district going whilst in lockdown. Mr. Chairman, I am speaking today on the ULHT board's decision last week to downgrade Grantham Hospital to an urgent treatment centre on the 22nd of June and become a non-COVID-19 green hospital. As someone who has had cancer, I fully understand the need that those on the waiting list be treated as soon as possible. What I think is disgraceful is that our A&E will once again be lost on a temporary basis until the 31st of March 2021 and will never recover, despite what the trusts say. Mr. Chairman, concerns have been raised by a number of staff to me that they feared the hospital would lose services by the back door. This was a question that I put to Andrew Morgan, Chief Executive Officer of ULHT, through the Melvin Pryor BBC radio show on the 21st of April. Andrew Morgan replied, rejecting such a suggestion. He said, "We are not looking to downgrade the site. I can reassure people on that." He later said, "I can reassure Councillor Wootton it's not some backdoor way to downgrade Grantham." Grantham Hospital A&E has been closed temporarily overnight since the 16th of August 2016, nearly 4 years. We believe that this new temporary means permanent. Mr. Chairman, at the board meeting last week, when questioned, Andrew Morgan stated that it is not within his gift to make changes and pointed to the Lincolnshire CCG as being in control. These changes will mean 4,603 patients, that's 19%, and that's ULHT's figures, their own figures, having to travel to Lincoln or Boston, a trust that has one of the worst records in England for dealing with patients within the 4-hour period and waiting ambulances. Councillors and campaigners have made their voice known over the past 4 years with rallies, motions at council and protests. But the fight goes on. We will not be disheartened. Angry, yes, but not beaten. As a cabinet, you have supported the hospital campaign. I ask that you consider sending a letter from the cabinet to John Turner, Chief Operating Officer, Lincolnshire CCG, and Matt Hancock, MP, the Health Secretary, outlining that we acknowledge the need for cancer patients to be seen and treated as soon as possible, but the Grantham Hospital should be reinstated back to its current position on the 1st of April 2020 or before, and hold a public consultation as soon as possible on its future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Of course, I'd be more than happy to send that letter. And I think actually what we need is, when we come out of the extraordinary council meeting that we're going to have, is we need a really strong letter on behalf of the council that I would like to be signed by both the chairman of the council and I think myself as leader of the council. You know, and I think if you just pick up on some of the points you've raised, you know, I've got concerns about, you know, we're moving services away. Well, will those staff that were part of that service that are then relocated, will they ever actually come back to the hospital site? You've got examples across the country where I think it is in Cheltenham, they've made temporary changes to the hospital, and that's for 3 months, not until the end of March. So why are we having to wait so long? And yet, you know, it's not about money because of, you know, we've just written off £345 million of debt. The government has written off that debt of the hospital trust. So we've got some serious concerns, but yes, I'm more than happy to send a letter to John Turner, as you've said. So we shall do that. I've got a few other questions first. If it's Adam, is yours related to the hospital?
Yes, it is, Leader.
Okay, we'll deal with the hospital ones first, and then I know we've got 2 questions from Councillor Baxter, and I know Councillor Phil Dilts wants to ask a question. So Adam, do you want to address your bit first, please?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I mean, I fully endorse what you've said, what Councillor Ray Wootton has said. I mean, it's an absolute disgrace, the way that they've used the pandemic as a backdoor mechanism to do exactly what they've wanted all the way along. And I think us as a town and us as a district should and we will continue to fight. I mean, it's just outrageous that this decision has been taken. And I do echo what you say about the staff, the leader, because I'm convinced that once the staff leave that base of Grantham, they will not return. Those beds will not be used again. And this is a downgrade by the back door, and it's over a cover of the coronavirus legislation. That's an absolute disgrace. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Adam. Councillor Adams, are you speaking on the hospital?
Yes, I am, please, Leader.
Okay.
Do you want me to speak now?
Yes, please. You can speak now. We'll deal with the hospital first.
Yeah, very briefly, Callum, fully support everything that you have said and Ray has said and Adam has said. It is an absolute disgrace. I think the people of excuse me, the people of Grantham are being treated very much in a contemptuous manner, and I think any representation we can make, even going to the Prime Minister, would be welcome and reassure our residents that we are fighting tooth and nail for them.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Mark Whittington, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, really just want to support the comments previously made by Ray, Adam and Bob, really. I mean, I've been on the Lincolnshire Health Screening Committee now for nearly over 3.5 years. And we've had a lost count of the number of times I've asked questions and Wootton's asked questions and Linda Wootton's asked questions on that committee, trying to wheedle out what the true intentions of the ULHT board are towards Grantham Hospital. And we have been given a whole stream of vague, waffly answers that sort of hide behind management speak all the time, never really get to addressing the issue. And quite frankly, I think a lot of us are just lost faith and confidence. And in fact, yeah, we have lost trust in the trust. It's as simple as that. Before their board meeting last week, the question I asked to Andrew Morgan was, you know, the original overnight closure was supposed to be temporary. This new move to a urgent treatment centre is supposed to be temporary. Based on your actions so far, what trust can the people of Grantham actually have? You know, is this a convenient? Is COVID-19 a convenient smokescreen for you to hide behind? My view is that it is. Mr. Morgan was extremely waffly in his response. Never really answered that question. I'm afraid it's just typical of the mindset that NHS managers, senior managers, get themselves into. I worked as an accountant in the health service for 25 years, and to be honest, they operate, especially the senior levels, they operate a kind of bunker mentality. They retreat behind it. They will just provide a total web of non-answers. I really do appreciate the special meeting, and I was pleased to be one of the councillors who agreed to sponsor that. I think we do need to have it fairly soon, and I think we need to send a really, really strong message to ULHT, to Lincolnshire CCG, and also to the Department of Health, that quite frankly this is not acceptable, and the Grantham people cannot be treated like this anymore. Thank you, Leader.
No, thank you, Councillor Mark Whittington. Just to confirm from Councillor Steptoe's question, when will the emergency meeting of this be? We have 2 dates at the moment, which we are working on. We're just waiting for confirmation from one of the individuals that signed the letter to have the additional meeting. So it will be held at 2 p.m. and it will either be on Monday the 29th of June or Wednesday the 1st of July. And we will have that confirmed as soon as we've spoken to that last councillor, and then we'll get the agenda out for that as well. So moving on from the hospital, Councillor Baxter, please. Are you there, Councillor Baxter?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah, I can hear you now.
Hello. I was talking to myself for a minute, as usual. I just want to say that I had the comments about how wonderful the staff have been and how hard the council has been working during the whole pandemic crisis. And it's good to be back at Cabinet and things looking a little bit more like normal. So welcome back. So my questions, two of them I've already sent to you, and the first is about the Leisure Transformation Programme. At the beginning of February, the Deputy Leader announced plans for members' working group or working groups to the Finance and the Culture Overview Scrutiny Committees. Those committees nominated members to attend the groups, but none of the groups have ever met, despite the fact that the Deputy Leader has shared information with third parties, such as parish councils. According to the draft work plan, investment plans for the leisure centres is one of the 12 proposed agenda items for the September Cabinet meeting. Could you please outline the scrutiny pathway for this issue? Will it include meaningful consultation with ward members? And will it include a joint meeting of the Finance and the Culture Overview Scrutiny groups?
I'll pass that on to Councillor Dobson, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you very much, Ashley, for this number of questions in here. Yeah, I do take your point. When I took over this portfolio at the end of January, as you'll perhaps remember, that on the 30th of January, I did have a meeting with those members for the Deepings area. And you mentioned several things in there that you wanted. I did explain to you also in that overview and scrutiny committee where we all were, that I had at that point no idea that that question or that proposal had been put on the agenda. But never mind, that's gone, that's passed. And I'd like to know how many councillors I am meant to have spoken to and informed, because as far as I know, it is only one parish council I've spoken to, and that is the parish council in which a leisure centre is planned for the Deepings. That's the Deeping St James Parish Council. Yes, let me say that prior to this paper being presented to Cabinet in September, I'm proposing to work with the Chairman of the Finance, Economic Development and Corporate Services Culture Overview and Scrutiny Committee, shortly known as FEDCO, to arrange a joint meeting to discuss the emerging leisure programme. This will provide an opportunity for members of those scrutiny committees to discuss and to debate the options available to the Council. The leisure programme is likely to require a significant investment from the Council, and we need to ensure that it is directed and focused on the right areas. Feedback from this joint OSC committee will allow the September Cabinet to refine the report, particularly with regards to future engagement and consultation with members. As the Cabinet Member for Growth and Leisure, my approach is always to look to engage with anyone that has an interest in the schemes that come under my portfolio. I have met with ward members and parish councils, well, parish council actually, and have utilised their informal feedback to inform my own thinking on the leisure programme. I would like this dialogue to continue and ensure that there is an engagement strategy in place to ensure that I can. And I'd just like to add that, you know, you have given me a lot of input on what you would like in the Deepings Leisure Centre. I have visited all three other centres with members from all groups. We have looked at it, and the proposal is to upgrade the centres at Grantham, at Bourne and at Stamford. The only new centre will be in the Deepings. And I hope that you will all work with me and try to get this done and get this through. There's a lot of work to be done. As you know, we've gone out to receive to consultation and to get feed-in from one of the major architects with Sport England. And I really hope to progress this as soon as possible for us all.
Brilliant. Thank you, Councillor Dobson. Councillor Batch, you have a second question.
Yes, thank you. I didn't hear Councillor Dobson say that he would be consulting with the relevant ward members first before the overview scrutiny groups, which I would find a bit disappointing. But I don't know what his plans are to do that. Obviously, he will need to speak to the parish council in Deeping St James, as they own most of the land, so it's no surprise. But I actually heard some of the comments that had been made secondhand at a neighbourhood planning meeting, and I was quite surprised that I was learning things at the neighbourhood planning meeting that I would have thought I'd get from elsewhere. But anyway, that conversation.
No. Let me answer that, please. Yeah, no, I of course I'm going to work with you, but at the moment, as I said back in January, when I did ask you on the 30th of January, we did have a small meeting. You put through things you wanted. I didn't quite realise at the time, so I was really brand new in the post, that we had gone out for consultation. That consultation has been returned. We're looking at it now to see what is in the proposals, what Sport England think we need. And I can assure you that there was a lot, and which you're particularly concerned in the Deepings, a lot in there which I think you'll like. We just have to look at it, look at the costs, and then we will come to you. And it won't be a finished thing. You'll still have your chance to say what you like and what you don't like in that. As far as I was concerned, the neighbourhood plan which you're talking about is probably the Deepings, is Market Deeping. Which I know they just got because they've announced it. I have not been there. I have not presented it. So all I can say is, Chancellor Baxter, that has been through probably some hearsay, either through the groups or through the parish council at Deeping St James. But there was no offence meant. It's an ongoing thing. We know we're going to have that leisure centre, and it is so right at this moment in time. We've seen how important leisure is to our health and our mental well-being. We've seen more people out walking, riding bikes. It would be lovely to have give them a decent facility for swimming in the Deepings.
I think if I can just add to what Councillor Dobson said, this leisure programme will be the largest expenditure that this council has undertaken for a substantial amount of time, and will probably for the future as well. And of course, there'll be engagement with local ward members, as there is with all decisions. There will be the opportunity to debate these at both joint scrutiny, and then obviously it will come to Cabinet and Council for that final decision. And so there'll be plenty of opportunity.
Leader, can I just add one more thing? Actually, Deeping St James is probably not the major landowner for this site. Lincolnshire County Council own most of it. But that is all ongoing. It doesn't matter who owns it. The two of them there are the biggest owners of land there. That's what we want. That's where we're going to put it, hopefully.
Thank you, Barry. Councillor Baxter, you had a second question, I believe.
I did. I won't continue with that because I don't want to use up my currency. But talking of riding bikes, in March 2019, so that's well over a year ago, the Cabinet was going to recommend to Council that a budget of £11,000 be sought for the development of a new cycling strategy through Sustrans. Has this aspiration for a cycling strategy been abandoned, or if not, can you tell me what progress has been made towards a cycling strategy, please? Thank you.
Is that for Councillor Dr. Mosley? Or is that from Councillor?
Yes, I think it is. It doesn't. It's interesting. I don't think it's strictly under me, but nevertheless, we've looked into it. The issue there was that we weren't able to progress to an agreement with Sustrans. So, although there was an ambition for a Sustrans-led cycling strategy, it was unable to be progressed. The council did continue to support Sustrans in their projects around the town over the course of 1920, which included the support for new crossing on Harlexton Road, for example, and the development of a project to enhance across Grantham connectivity in partnership with the Woodland Trust. The original approach was unsuccessful, but there may well be an opportune time to re-engage in the future, but we don't quite know when that will be. I think cycling is going to be something which is part of green recovery, and I'm welcoming the conversation of that surrounding that particular initiative. Perhaps through environment overview and scrutiny would be the best place for it.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Phil Dilks.
Thank you, Callum, and thank you for that information that Barry's just given us. I know that before I get on to my question, I note Barry talked about the consultation and Sport England. My understanding was that the major consultation documents had come from another company called Mace, but we can have a conversation about that, Barry. My question is to Callum, if I may, and it's in the spirit of working together. Callum, you'll be pleased to know. And I'd like to ask you to use your good offices as leader of the council to support members of the planning committee in a particular concerning aspect of the council's COVID recovery plan. And that is helping, will you please help, to ensure that before we as members of the committee are asked to decide on planning applications, full meaningful site visits for members are resumed without delay, whilst of course respecting social distancing. It's understandable, of course, that during the height of the lockdown, to keep planning ticking over, members of the committee were asked to determine applications for sites we've been instructed not to visit. And this in itself has highlighted the vital value of visits, being able to stand on the ground to get a feel for the locality and see for ourselves the potential impact of what's being proposed allows us to make more sensible, informed determinations. And I'm sure we all appreciate that planning decisions, do have a real long-term impact on our communities and the very lives of those we seek to represent. But I believe there is a real danger here that if, as elected members, we continue to make decisions on major applications without even the opportunity of visiting the application site, we lay ourselves open to public ridicule and even legal challenge. I, for one, would not be prepared to continue serving on the planning committee under such circumstances. I welcome the work by Councillor Robert Reid as Cabinet Member for Planning and by Councillor Bob Adams, Chairman of Planning, in this regard, which has so far resulted in limited reinstatement of site visits. But I do detect a possible reluctance in some quarters, which is why I'm today asking you as leader to put your weight behind this important issue. Thank you.
No, thanks, Phil. And I know that, obviously I know it's quite difficult to look at planning sites, particularly on Google Earth and Street View, because often they are, it's out of date imaging. And it's also very difficult to see it in the whole context. I know at the moment, I think the site visits are for the complex cases, and I'm certainly more than happy to support if it's sensible and is appropriate for site visits. But I'll ask Robert Reid, do you want to just come in on this? I know you've been considering it as well as a member of the committee.
Yes, thank you, Callum, and hello, Phil, as well. Firstly, thank you very much indeed for your support and work within the committee as well, Phil. As you will well know, we have got staggered site visits for Tallington, which is a major application with complex issues. We have this morning been working through the necessity for site visits for the 24th of June schedule. And to answer more directly, for planning for the agenda of the 8th of July, which we are expecting Tallington to come back to in any event, I'm optimistic and hopeful that we can resume site visits, particularly to the important sites. I think we might learn the odd trick that where it's possibly a SKDC council application or more sort of straightforward ones, we might not need to do all of them straight away, but I am minded, and I do know that all members of the committee are joining with you in that quest. I'm working in a reality situation to bring back reality as quickly as possible, and fingers crossed this damn thing just doesn't cause us a lockdown. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, and obviously I'm happy to propose that you and the chief exec work on a new framework so we can get site visits back up and running again in a normal fashion.
Can I confirm that the Chief Executive and I are doing that? Thank you. And I thank her for her support as well.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Councillor Jackie Smith.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd just like to endorse what's been said. I've spent a number of years in property development, particularly industrial sites. And one of the things that I've noticed from many site visits is that there is, you can only really see the problems of the sites, the surroundings of the sites and that, if you are actually standing there and having a good look at it. And I'm fully aware, because I've been on the planning committee ever since I became a councillor, and I sometimes look at the absolute awful mistakes that we have made and allowed to go through. And on nearly every one of those occasions, it's because we didn't have a site visit. And I do think it is absolutely important that we've got a lot of redevelopment to look at, and we want to make sure that we get it right, because it's going to be there for a long time, and it's going to be something that will either encourage people to come here or to stay away, go somewhere else.
Lovely, thank you, Jack.
So I really do hope that we can have our site visits back. We have lots of people on the committee, on our planning committees over the years, that have a lot of knowledge, but every so often you get people that can't see from a bare site and can't envisage what something built on it will look like. So I think it's important that we have the sites.
It is, and obviously it's just been done because of obviously essential travel and stuff otherwise. But Councillor Reid, you wanted to come back on that?
Just to add, Callum, networking is also essential. It's essential for all of us, very honestly, checking with each other that our mind of thought is correct, and that is sometimes what happens during site visits. So humans, we're tactile. We are not being able to have any social contact in regard of any applications. So believe you me, members, when we can, I assure you, we're ready to go ASAP.
Lovely, thank you, Robert, for that. So moving on to agenda item number 11 on the key and non-key decisions taken under delegated powers. Obviously, you will receive the reports as presented on those documents. Obviously, the insurance one was obviously a key decision that was taken on the 18th of May. It was circulated. So effectively, I'm pleased to be able to share with you that we have secured a highly competitive 3-year contract with Zurich Municipal to meet all of the council's insurance needs, and that will save us £45,000 per year. The contract is effective from today, and there is an option to extend it by a maximum of a further 2 years. Zurich Municipal were one of the 5 bids received during the procurement exercise, which we ran with the support of our brokers, through the insurance framework, the Yorkshire Purchasing Organisation, and obviously all insurance companies on this framework were invited to bid. The award was approved and the notification of award letters were issued. The winning bid is below the current price and budget set for insurance, enabling savings to be made as predicted. And I'm sure you'll all join in me in thanking our finance and procurement teams for their hard work in running such a good process and delivering a very positive outcome, actually, which will obviously contribute to our wider corporate procurement and savings efficiencies. So if there's no further cabinet members to speak on that, it is just simply for noting. So we will move on to the cabinet forward plan. I know all cabinet members have seen this and seen the circulated document. That is simply for noting. Councillor Reid.
Thank you again, Callum. Looking through the forward plan, I am expecting 2 additions, one probably from the outcome of Kratos and our planning review, and one probably from our housing review, just to mention that they are likely to be additions on the radar.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. So that is just for noting, so there's no formal vote on that. There are no items under the urgent items. Obviously, we will not be going into exempt session. So it just leaves me to sum up now. And firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Chris Benn for the work that he did in the Glen ward. Obviously, Chris took the decision alongside his family for health reasons to resign from the council. And I know we all wish Chris the very best for the future. And I know he'll still remain in contact with us as a council, as I know he did a fantastic job as the chairman of the Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and he was a really useful member on numerous committees, filling in, particularly on the Companies Committee and also planning. I'm really pleased that we've had the Cabinet meeting today, because I think it's the first phase of us getting back into a sense of normality. And obviously, Cabinet members now have the delegated authorities again, so that's one weight off my shoulders. And obviously, I'd like to wish you all the very best for the rest of the week, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. And at 3:45, I call the meeting to a close. So thank you very much for attending. Brilliant.
Bye, Callum.
Cheers.
Bye, Callum and all.
Thanks, Callum. Thanks, everyone.